the next topic um, is JavaScript arrays. And this is a very important topic because we use arrays in JavaScript quite a lot. Um, so expect to do lots of homework and self-study on this topic because it is really an important one. So we use JavaScript arrays everywhere, and it's very important to understand that. And we will be also doing some TypeScript because I was waiting for us to get to the arrays to also show some TypeScript. Okay, so let's start with the arrays. But let's discuss first what is an array. So in JavaScript and in most programming languages, there is a way to have an ordered list of values, right? So for example, you can have your numbers ordered in some specific order. You can have some strings. You can have whatever it is. But the thing is, they should be in some kind of order. So in JavaScript, the data structure, not the data type, because arrays are not a data type, a standalone data type in JavaScript. So the data, the way to do that is arrays. So how to create an array? So let's start with our declaration. An array. So we're going to have an array of numbers, right? So the way you create an array is you have the square brackets, right? So the opening and the closing one. And then you start enumerating some values and you separate them with commas. So what we have here is we have an array of numbers. We start with 1, 3, 5, 6. And similar to strings, we also have indices here, right? So one would have a value 1, would have the index 0. Very similar to strings, because if we have a string value, hello, the value age index also 0, right? So whenever we did something like this, string value 0, this what we specify here is the index, right, of the character we would like to get. So that is why we usually in JavaScript objects are taught first, because arrays inherit a lot of things from objects. But here, since strings and arrays are quite similar to each other, that they share a lot of methods. That's why I wanted to introduce them kind of together. So to also show the similarities, and that would also help to memorize things better. Okay, so we can use this syntax to get some value in our arrays. So we can go for array of numbers. Let's get the element at index 1. As you can see, the value is 3. That is correct, because we'll start with the index 0. We always start with index 0. It's not only in JavaScript, but also in other languages. However, the index can be kind of manipulated. We'll also talk about that. So the element in this array with the index 1, so 0, 1 is 3. That is correct. Now the value with index 0, 1, 2, 3, 3 would be 6. Then what would be the value of the element of that array with index 4? It will be undefined. Okay, so very similar to what we have with strings. If we would go for -1, as you remember, we had this increase, the value is undefined. Okay, so again, no out of scope errors, nothing. You'll just always get an undefined. Now, there is a way to get the number. Well, there's a way to get the length of the array. I wanted to say the number of elements in array. However, this is not the way to do that. So we could use dot length, the property called dot length, and usually it represents the number of characters in your arrays, because in this case we have 4 elements, so that's natural that the length of the array would be 4. So okay, how do we get the last element in JavaScript? We can do it this way. Sorry, array of numbers is correct. No, we remove this one. Okay, so we calculate the length of the array, which is 4. Then we subtract 1, and that would be 3. That would be our maximum index for this array. So that's how we get the last element of the array. However, as we already discussed with strings, there is a simpler way which I just also verbally said, and that's the .add method. We can go for the -1 here, and that also works. So basically, to just put this approaches kind of back to back together, .add -1, and .add works very similar to what we had with strings. If the .add says a negative number, it starts from the end rather from the beginning. So and it is recommended to use this add because you don't have to write too many characters with the square brackets here. So both of them give the exact same value. This one is shorter.
It's complaining big red.
Yeah, that's okay because it says just go do some TypeScript stuff, which we don't need to do. So it is not a syntax error here. It is TypeScript complains about something, lets you know. So that's done. As you can see, the code executes correctly. We can also copy paste this in the browser and it will work. Okay. So again, coming to the fact that JavaScript is a very strange language, I will start with showing some things that you should not do, right? So be wary. This is not how we use the arrays in JavaScript, but be aware of that and don't do this, okay? So we talked about the property .length. So when we would like to get the number, or when we would like to get the length of the array, we do this. So this is how we get the value, but it is also possible to set the length of the array, if that makes sense. So we have this array, we have 4 elements. What we can do is we can say that now your length is 2. Okay, we don't have any errors. However, let's console log our array and let's see what that did. Now what you can see, we have only the first 2 values, right? So I'm going to add some more kind of items here. Okay, I'm going to console log the same array here. Here is the original array. Here is where we change the length of the array, and then we get only 1, 3. So you can also set the length of the array, and it effectively kind of truncates the array, right? So when you say that, well, the length of the array is 2, it means you've effectively cut off all the other values, right? So you say, I want only 2 elements in my array, and only the 2 first elements will be kept. So this is effectively cutting your array, and it modifies your array, right? It does not create a new array or something. As you might even notice that we use the const, right, keyword here to create an array, but somehow we were able to modify that array. That is exactly why I was saying is that const does not allow you to reassign values, but you can still change the values. So this is an error. It says you cannot redeclare. That is correct. However, we can still modify that array like this. And there are many other ways to modify arrays, objects, whatever. You cannot do this with primitive values, which are, for example, numbers, booleans, strings, etc. However, with arrays and objects, you can do something like this. So with const, you cannot just reassign, right? You cannot use the assignment operator again, but still there are some ways to change the values.
Sorry, if after like equal to, we will type the same equal 3, what we will get?
Pardon?
Like about after array of numbers dot length equal to, we will type like equal 3, what we will get?
You mean we type 3 here?
No,
After this.
after that.
Okay. Let's see what. No, it's not going to say undefined, but it's so again, this is one of the strangeness, right? I started with the truncating part specifically because that's how you would visually see the change. You can also say that my length, let's remove this one, right? We have an element of 7, we have an array of 7 elements. We can say now your length is 20. However, as you can see, no actual values were added into array. I was going to get into this next. Because now this is very strange because you have an array of 7 elements. However, the length of that array is 20. This is very counterintuitive because you have 7 elements in the array, 7 actual values, but the length of the array is 20. This is when I corrected myself. I wanted to say that length shows the number of elements, but it does not. It's just a property that you can override. So be very careful with dot length. Never kind of try to do all these length reassignment by yourself. Just know that something like this happens. JavaScript is JavaScript. This is a word language. This is not C++. You don't have the out of scope errors. You can do very strange things like this. Okay. So another way to kind of modify the length of the array would be to use some methods which kind of change the value of the array in place, right? So they do not create a new array, but they change the value in place. So one of these would be pop. And what pop does, it just adds an element at the end of the array. So we pop the value and we do the console log. I hope it adds the element at the array, if I recall.
Which would that?
Oh, sorry. It removes the element. Let's start with pushing. Let's do push and then I'll show the pop. So yeah, so it pushes a value, right, at the end of the array. And you can use pop to pop that value from the end of the array. And then we have shift and unshift to do the same operation, but from the beginning of the array. So we can say shift, is this the correct thing I'm trying to do? I don't even know. Let's see. Okay, so some quick ways to kind of modify the arrays. What else we can do with arrays? So I've shown you the 2 ways of accessing elements, which will be the .add and the square brackets. I've shown you that you can do some weird stuff with arrays, which is modifying the .length property, etc. So .length does not represent the number of elements in your array. It's an overridable property, which you should not be playing with, and that's normally not how you use arrays in JavaScript. But now let's also do some maybe TypeScript stuff, right? So what if we would like to say that, hey, we only would like to have this type of value in the array, because in JavaScript, arrays are very versatile. You can have different types of values in your array, right? So we can say true is one of the Boolean values, right? So we can do something like this. We can have different types of values in our array. So we can have booleans, numbers, objects, like whatever you think about, we can have it. We can even have some arrays, right? We can nest arrays into another arrays, which in JavaScript is called multi-dimensional arrays. So we can nest arrays inside each other. We can do this, but what if we would like to tell TypeScript, which, if you all know, TypeScript is some kind of superset of JavaScript. It adds this type, all these types in JavaScript, like it adds the type set. So you can say, hey, I would like to only store strings in my variable, because in JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. You can just put anything you want in your variables. There are many languages that do not work like that, and those languages are called strictly typed languages, right? So if you create a variable which stores number, then you cannot change that ever in some other languages. However, in JavaScript, Python, in some of those dynamically typed languages, you can dynamically in the runtime, during the runtime, change the type of the value that your variable holds. So for example, we have this, let's go for a let declaration, and we can also say, now this is 1. And if we have two console logs, well, that is not a sign. Oh, yeah. Welcome to TypeScript. So this actually works because of JavaScript. However, TypeScript already starts showing some warnings, and we'll see how. But if we do not, if you forget about TypeScript part of the things, what I was showing is that we have this array, we do a console log, yeah, we have these values, this one, and then we assign number 1 to the variable which was just holding an array, and then we have 1. So this shows the dynamically typed part of JavaScript. So we can do something like this. However, if you'd like to have some warnings, or you would not like to do something like that, you can say, hey, I want an array of numbers. And then what TypeScript is going to do, since TypeScript adds all this type checking, etc., it adds this validation for you. Now it says, hey, you have a Boolean value, but you just told me that all the elements in your array should be numbers. So go check what's wrong. So we have Boolean, that's incorrect, because we told TypeScript all our elements are numbers. We have strings, that's also incorrect. And then, as you can see, we don't have these red squiggly kind of lines under numbers, which is correct because we only need numbers here. And we can also switch to strings, for example. Now we say, hey, I would like to have an array of elements and type of which are only string. And then we kind of switch the errors. Now Booleans are errors, numbers are errors, and we don't see this red squiggly lines under the strings. So this is how you could say TypeScript, hey, I want an array of this type of elements. However, you don't always have to do that. If you initialize your array with some numeric values, as you can see, when I hover my mouse, well, let's put it that way, on that variable, as you can see, somehow TypeScript already knew that this is an array of numbers because that's how you initialize it, right? And we can also have like Booleans or whatever it is, true and false. Now it says that we have only Boolean values in the array, so it says that, hey, I can understand that this is an array of Boolean only values. So this is called type inference in JavaScript. So you don't always have to explicitly tell that my variable should hold this type of value, because sometimes, for example, when you initialize your values, it can just infer values. It can just infer the type of your variables.
If you call array of numbers, you got a string with a kilobyte.
Let's try that out. So as you can see, since it says this is an array of Booleans, you cannot do this. And you cannot also do the other way around, like this. You maybe can kind of fool it to you can kind of fool TypeScript to think that 1 is still a Boolean, but you would have to use the as operator. So as means I want the value 1 as a Boolean. So you kind of explicitly convert the type of the value, but since the number cannot be explicitly converted to the Boolean, we have to add some middleware step.
In this case, if we better work from replace this number that is set as Boolean and create like numeric operations.
Yes, you can do that because again, types are TypeScript stuff. The JavaScript underneath still works. And actually, when this code is compiled, let me see if I can show that. TypeScript playground online. when this code is compiled down to the JavaScript, all these types are removed because these are not JavaScript things, right? This is TypeScript. So that's why TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. It adds new things. And when you compile TypeScript into JavaScript, all these types are stripped down. So you would get this. Okay.
Ich stelle erst einmal sagen, warum let's go with it last like in the 19 days.
You got it. As you can see, I just copy pasted the previous example onto the official TypeScript playground. This is the previous example. So as you can see, all the types here were removed. So this is how TypeScript compiles your code. It just removes all type declaration. I can write Boolean array. You don't have that here because you don't have type kind of declarations in JavaScript. So this is being removed, and this is being removed, and now both of these codes are basically the same. Of course, TypeScript still gives you an error because it inferred on line 1, it inferred that the type of your array is an array of Booleans, and you are assigning here an array of numbers. So you still have the error here, but this code on the left side is still compiled to the code on the right side. So no type declarations whatsoever. So this is pretty much equal in JavaScript to this, as you can see here.
Sure. Is it an variable response that has better link? You didn't check on.
As we already discussed, if we declare a constant, an array as a constant, right? So this does not mean that you cannot change the value of the array. This just means that you just cannot reassign a new value to this array, right? So now what it says, you cannot assign because it is a constant. This is slightly misleading in JavaScript because if you would use this, you might assume that, okay, so I cannot change the values of my array forever, but that's not the case. As I explained, you just cannot assign new values. However, you can still change the contents of the array. We can do push 1. And when we do the console log, we have the 1 there. So we actually changed the value of the array itself, but it was defined, it was declared with the const. So that's the difference. Still, we can change the value, but we cannot redeclare it. That is
in case like the type of array we will like define by this includes and understand numbers like.
Okay, that's a very good question. So what you can do if you are going to have a mixed kind of types of elements in your arrays, if for example one thing you can do is you can say mixed elements array. You can say, hey, I want an array, but I don't want you to check the types of the values. So then you can say 1 and true and string. So this is how you explicitly tell TypeScript to skip type check, basically. This is the keyword for that, okay? So this is not a type itself, but the keyword any in TypeScript is the way to tell TypeScript, I don't want you to check my types, okay? No errors, nothing, don't check anything. I know what I'm doing. I take all the risk, okay? So this is the keyword for that. However, this is not type safe anymore. And it basically undermines the whole purpose of TypeScript. But sometimes you have to, you start with any, and then you gradually kind of improve your types.
If we like will not write this any, it will understand any, right?
It will understand that it is an array. However, it will also understand that you can include not only numbers, not only strings, but also Booleans in an array, okay? So you can then pop a Boolean value here, then you can pop a number here, then you can pop a string here. But when you pop something else, it will say, I don't know what this is, okay? So go check that. Okay. And basically what this part means, let me just copy paste it in the comment and I'll explain it. So what this part means, okay? So what this means, this is like an OR operator in types. It says, this is an array, as we have this. This is an array of either strings or numbers or booleans, or mixed values in any way. So you can have strings, you can have numbers, you can have booleans. If you can have an array of strings, numbers, or booleans here, so it will not complain. But when you add something else, when you add an array in there, when you add a function in there, when you add an object in there, then it will complain. It will say, I don't know what this is. I only expect numbers, strings, and booleans in this array.
If they're late, like instead of cost.
That actually doesn't make any difference, because we're talking about the type inference in TypeScript, and it doesn't really care about your declaration type. Okay, so I'm going to iterate through the values of this array, and I'll show you 3 ways to do that with the for loops. And then we will discuss some array methods, some nice array methods, which you should actually know. I want to say by heart, but you'll be using them so often that you'll just know them by heart. Okay, they're very essential ones. So let's start with the simple for loop, right? Everyone knows this. We've just used that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to console log the values in the array. And then I'm going to increase the iterator value. Then I'm going to console.log mixed elements array and I. Okay, so we have our array and all the elements are console log. Just so you know, this is the most performant loop in JavaScript. Like the most performant for loop in JavaScript. We have other for loops, and they are not as performant as this. But you usually do not care about performance, right? So just so you know, as an FYI, this is the most performant loop. However, it's not always the most convenient one, right? So we have another type of a for loop, which has been added into the language recently, I think a couple of years ago or so, where if we only care about the values but not the indices, right? We can do something else. We can say let value of this array and console log the value, or let's say element, right? So you can use this is called a for of loop, right? So if you only care about the actual values in the array, you can use this. So consider this as a kind of shorthand of this one. There is another type of for loop. It's called for in. For in array element key.
Yeah, thanks.
Array and element key. Okay. And this one is called a for in group. Now, as you can read from the naming conventions, I specifically name my variables in a way that if you would read the code, you basically understand what's going on there. And so here we read the array element, and but here with the for in loop, for in loop, we read the key of that element, not the key itself, not the element itself. So we have to again use the square brackets here. However, you should not use this loop for going through the elements of the array, because it does not only read your indices like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it also reads all possible keys in your arrays, objects. When we get to objects, I'll explain what that means. So we just kind of reiterates through all possible keys, which is not what we would like here. We only want to get the indices, 0, 1, 2, whatever. So this should be avoided in JavaScript when you read elements, when you like to get elements. Okay, so I've shown you the 3 for loops. Then we also have the while loop. We also have the do while loop. Not going to show there. You have the learning resources. You should also look them up for yourself. Okay, so what other ways are there to kind of iterate through the elements?
Second one, output, can we see what just
Like it's one.
commented? No, last one.
It is still the same. So this is the first loop, this is the second one, and this is the for in. It is still the same. However, this is not safe. That's that's my warranty. Okay, so it might not or always work as intended. So try to avoid it. If you would simply like to get the elements of an array, just use for off. If you need some indices, you can go for the traditional for loop. However, there are also other ways to look over the elements of an array, and one of them would be the for each loop, which they also have in C# and some other programming languages. So we can go for a code like this. We did not went through the functions during this course. However, we'll be using them at the moment to just show how this works. So we can do for each, and it receives a function. Now I'm going to specifically use the function declaration here, meaning I will going to use this type of function and not this one, to just not to confuse you, right? We'll get that when we discuss functions. So I'm going to do this. So element, okay, element. And then what we can do, we can also console.log element. Okay. But let's do this way. Okay, so console.log for each. Just not confused with others. And okay, I'll do actually this. That clears somehow. Okay, let me see if I can just copy paste the code and reload the page. Yes. Okay. Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I forgot to copy the declaration. Cons 1 to 23 or whatever, like any values, doesn't matter. True. Okay, cool. We should not be concerned with that. Okay, so we had 3 for loops. Now the other way to loop through our elements of an array is this dot for each method, right? So the way it works, you type in the name of your array, the variable name of the array, then dot, then for each. Now what it does, it receives a function, and the first argument of the function are your elements. So this works quite similar to the for off loop, right? So it gives you your elements. Okay, so we just logged. Cool. What other options we have to look through the arrays? Now imagine we would like to use one of the functions that we're familiar with called parsing. Okay, so let's comment out all this stuff here, and imagine we have a string numbers array of string numbers. Okay, so we have 1, we have 1.2, we have 20, whatever, 50, doesn't matter, 546. Now, what if we would like to get a new array with actual numbers, right? These are strings. So let's maybe solve this with the for loop. Okay, sure. And that's pretty intuitive. Let's go array of numbers. Let's start with an empty array since we do not have any values. Then let's go for a let value of our string numbers, right? So then maybe we can use the push method that we learned just now, and we're going to push the value. No, we're not going to push the value itself, because we'll still have an array of strings, but we would like to get an array of numbers. So maybe we can just do a parse int of the value itself. Maybe that's correct. Let's see. So basically we now push all the elements, but parsed in this new array. So let's console log and see what that does. Console log,
We want integer numbers or just numbers?
one integer numbers at this point, right? So array of string, we can also console.log this one, okay, to just basically show the difference. Okay, so in this first option, okay, we have something in the chat. Yeah, sure, go ahead and jump. Okay, so in this first console log, as we can see, the terminal says that the values are strings, okay? We can see it here. That's why I console log the original array. However, in the second console log, as we can see, they are actual numeric values. So we basically transformed these string numerical values in strings into actual numbers. How should I check if the elements of this array are actual numbers? How do I do that?
Title. We will
Title.
type
Okay, so
take for each element.
okay, so maybe we can use the newly learned for each function for each method, and number numeric value. Okay, so we can just say maybe console log. How do I write this? Type of
Numeric value.
function, type of numeric value, and then we confirm that all the elements in this new array are numbers. So the transformation was successful. However, we created a new array, kind of initialized it. Of course, we're going to create a new variable which will hold the value, but anyways, we kind of initialized it. Then we had to kind of manually push all these new values, and we still use the for loop. Okay, and then we check the type of the values with for each. Cool. Is there any other way to do this? Of course there is. Okay, so let's also comment. Yeah, let me just copy this now, comment it out. Cool. So now I'm going to show you one of the most used array methods ever. Okay, so this is one of the things that you should be learning, and you should know it by heart, and you are going to use it, I hope, frequently. We shall see. It is one of the most used ones. Okay, let's put it that way. So the use case is, given an array of elements, how to transform these elements into something else. Okay, that's the use case. You would like to have an array of strings. Now you want to have another array of the same length, but you want all these elements as numbers or objects, whatever you want them to be transformed. So this is the use case of this method that I'm going to show. Okay, so we grab this variable that instead of for each, we type map. So the name already kind of gives you a hint. So it takes the original values and it maps them, transforms them into something else. So then we write function, and it still gets the original element and console log element type of element, so that you see that these are the original elements, as you can already see in the console. And then what we do is we return a new value, right? So I know we didn't learn how functions work in this session, but since this is an accelerated course, I'm just going to show you some shortcuts. So you take the element, and what you need to do, you do your transformations and then return another one. Okay, you get a new element, you transform it, you give it another one. Cool. So we'll be doing the parsing in here, right? Or let's do this way. Const parsed numeric value. Now it equals to parse int element. Element. Okay. So now we do.
Well,
What?
It's pressed. It word.
Nice. Good job.
or I'm like,
Good job.
All in America.
Hat funkcja gerinkes vannak. Ennél kapnak refreshál, men kopjál, men két kód.
No.
Okay, I'll trick it. No worries.
Mi kód?
No,
Just like that.
1.2. Never mind 1.2. We're not going to exceed the deadline here. No worries there. So map, a map and function and element. Okay, so return parse and element. Cool. Okay, so let's maybe console log this thing and see what it is. Console.log. And as you can see, let me also console log the original one. Okay, and I'll also do this and this and this and this, so it's more readable for you. So will be console.log the original array. As you can see, this is strings and this is numbers. Okay, so map.map array map is the use case is you take in the values individually, transform them into something, whatever it is, and return. So what that means is that a dot map will always return an array which has the same length as the original array. So it does not kind of truncate your array, it does not do that kind of transformations. It just gives you the possibility to transform the values itself. Okay.
Sorry, and before this, like, if we like change the length of array, like if we decrease the length and after this implement the function, what will we get? Like, it will change and we will get the new change length, like decrease.
Okay. So let's do this way. Okay. So I'll be verbally say what happens, then I'll code it and we'll see that it happens that way. Okay. So what you're saying is we have a variable const string array or array of strings. Okay. So what our colleague says here, let's maybe have this console log, but we're going to hit the limitation here. So I'll still have to trick it. So let's link this. So our colleague says, okay, so what happens if we change the length, that the part that I told do not use that. So he says, what happens if we change the length of the array? But let me first maybe add some more values here. 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5. We have an array of 5 elements. Okay. So what would you like to override the length with? Would you like 3? Okay. So what we learned is that if we would like to set the length of this array to 3, we would have the array truncated and we would only have the first 3 values. So let's do that. Dot length is 3, and then I'll also console.log the array so that we see that the values were truncated. And I don't think I have to go into the map thing because now you have an array of 3 elements. You do the map, you'll go through only of these 3 elements. So it just works the way you expect to work. Fortunately, this time. Okay. So okay, let me go for a numeric array, right? So let's go for something like this. Okay. No, that's not a correct number. And maybe it's 56, 45, and 56, whatever it is. Now, another method, also one of the most used ones, is what if you have an array? So dot map gives you an array of the same length. It just transforms the value. By the way, what happens if I do something like this? Okay, so I'm going to comment this out so that you don't see the result, because I would like to guess the result. Element. Okay, so we do this, return element. So what does this do? Can you guess?
The state that was great. Yeah, the state for the view length array. So let's fill the code.
Exactly. So we'll just get a copy of the same array. However, it is not an exact copy in the full sense, which we will get when you arrive to the referential types, primitive types, comparing stuff together. The containing values will be exactly the same. However, they will be two different arrays.
Correct.
Yeah, it will be no reference. So, okay. So second function is filter. Okay. So it again the kind of synopsis or the visually everything works pretty much the same. So as you remember, dot map receives a function which gets an element for you. Same thing there. So now this is the second use case, right? Now we're not kind of trying to transform something, but we're trying to filter out some elements from the array. So we have this function, right? So we get the element. What if we only would like to get all the elements where value of the element is more than 50? Okay, so filter is that use case. So works the same way, but we should return either true or false from this function. So we say we only want to get all the elements which are bigger than 50. You write the code exactly the same. So return element bigger than 50. Okay. So let's console log this thing. Console.log and remove this one. Okay. So it works pretty much as we would like it to work. So it filtered out all the elements which are less than or equal 50. Okay, so this is our condition. If any of the elements does not satisfy this condition, it is dropped out. It's filtered. So 1, 34, 4, 45 are both dropped out from the new array, and we have an array of elements where the value is always bigger than 50. Now, what if we reverse the condition? Now all the values which are bigger than 50 will be dropped. So this is the other way around. So we have only 1, 34, 4, 55. As you can see, the order of the elements is preserved. So it does not do the sorting for you, right? And there we come to the other method, which is .sort. It will not do the sorting here because you will have to kind of specify some kind of function. So we can say function A and B, I think it was, and you return A minus B. But I will have to write it down correctly. So as you can see, our array was sorted. We're not going to go into the deeps. What is this function? Why you would have to specify a function to sort it? Just I'll send you the learning materials, and you will go through them, and we can just reverse the condition here, and the order in the array would be descending instead of ascending. So that's about that. We have a few minutes left, and one of the most important. Let's have an array. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What is the sum of this number? Can you just calculate and tell me what is the sum of these numbers?
15.
15.
15.
15. Okay. So
You want the same variance 3, 4.
But what I'm trying to do here, we've already jumped to the solution, but what I'm trying to do here, of course you guessed it, because we're going to kind of add all this number of the array. So the next method is the most powerful one. Okay, it's not always easy to understand how it works, but it just gives you the most power available to do the filtering, to do the mapping or transforming in the same place. Okay, so So now what we would like to do with this array, we would like to kind of sum all the values or add all the values together and get a number, okay? So with map and filter, we always get an array. Even if in the filter, if none of the arrays satisfies the condition, you get an empty array, okay? You always get an array with map and filter. However, if that does not satisfy your use case and you would like to completely transform your array into number, Boolean, object, whatever it is, this is what you're going to use. So you can say, let me start with the console log. You can start with this, and then you go for the reduce function, okay? So accumulator current value, okay? And so this reduce takes two function. It takes two kind of arguments. The first one is a function. However, okay, types to stuff. Don't. Let's not be concerned with that. Okay, so reduce takes two arguments. So it takes a function, and it takes an initial value. Okay, so what we have here, so the first argument is a function and the second argument is 0, because the way we're going to do this is we're going to start with 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus whatever plus 5. And that's how, yeah, of course. Let's wait for another second. So that's how we'll basically start doing things, okay? So it is also possible to not specify the initial value, but I'm going to go with the initial value anyways. So the accumulator is where we are storing the temporary kind of result of our operations. So we'll be storing in this accumulator the 1 plus 2, and then 1 plus 2 plus 3 to get our whole result. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say add the value add the current value to the accumulator. Okay, so and the way this works, again, it will start with 0. 0 will be our accumulator, and the current value for the first iteration would be 1, and then the accumulator would be 0 plus 1. For the second loop, it will already be 0 plus 1 plus our current value, and it would be 2 for the second loop, and plus 3, plus 4, and plus 5, and that's how we get 15 from the array. Okay, so we started with string array console.log. We started with an array, and then we kind of completely transformed it into a number. So
you change the argument macros there. Like we can put any number we want.
Yeah, the way you do it, you return some value from your function, and for the next loop, the value of the accumulator would be that. Okay, so if I would to return a string here, we would have the accumulator having that string value, and that's why we have this console log, since nothing changed, because every time we return the same thing. Okay. Cool. So we've learned about dot filter, dot map, dot for each, and dot reduce. However, do not worry. Again, I did not expect you to know everything from this 2-hour session. I will have some homeworks for you, right? Some tasks, examples. So you have to type some code and learn how this actually works. There are many more other array methods. One of the interesting ones is join. For example, you can join the elements together into a string, right? So if you'd like to have, we have an array 1, 2, 3. If we would like to have a string of elements separated by a space or 2 spaces, we can use this join method, right? And as you can see, by default, we have the comma separated place when we do the join. Cool. So any other methods, I'll expect you to learn yourself. If you have any questions, you let me know. I will be sending all the kind of documentation, etc., as I did previously. and by the end of the week, I think we'll also have another quiz. We just started the week. We have lots of things to learn each day, so we will have quizzes and homework as we go. So I think this is it for today.